La la la, Leonie Dawson's refuses to be categorized. Hooray, hooray! Friends, 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 welcome back to the podcast. Today I want to be sharing about you all the deep, dark TMI. Well, I don't know if it's dark, it's delicious, it's light-filled, but it's definitely and I don't think it's TMI. Nay, let us carry forth. I want to talk about why I've changed and how I've changed profoundly on the inside. So if you follow me on socials or if you get my emails, you may have noticed a difference in my energy lately. And I think it started becoming noticeable early in the year. And now as the months go by, it keeps on compounding. And I feel like at once more grounded and more alive and more grateful and more excited. And I also feel like my capacity to create and share and connect is getting bigger and expanding. And that feels really, really exciting. I had a coaching client who asked me what was causing those changes. And I shared with her the story and it ended up being kind of long. And I thought, you know what? You would probably like to hear it too. So for me, I've been on this kind of healing quest for quite a while now. It started a few years ago when I tried out cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as CBT. And my assistant at the time had a very handy degree in psychology, and we had this conversation. And she said to me, "Look, I noticed that you're not in a great space right now. Are you still going to therapy?" And I replied, I was, but it was actually making me spiral more. I started second guessing all my thoughts and myself. And I thought CBT was supposed to be gold standard, but I don't know if I'm doing it wrong. And Seat said, look, it's actually gold standard for neurotypical people, and for neurodivergent people, it can actually worsen symptoms. And I was like, what? What's gold standard for a neurodivergent person then? And she said, look, here's the thing, there's actually no gold standard that's been clarified or researched enough for neurodivergent people. Oh, what a surprise. And there's just not enough research out there. And it's more of a pick and mix bag of what is helpful to you. So some people find acceptance and commitment therapy helpful. Some people find equine therapy helpful. Some people find somatic therapies helpful. And it's really just about working out what works for you. And she said to me, what worked for you previously? And I said, look, I always found intuitive healing and mentoring with people like Kerry Rowett and Hiro Boga to be hugely helpful. But I somehow started thinking that I should be doing CBT instead because that's somehow more real and scientifically validated. And Sis was just if it works for you, it's actually completely valid. And you can just claim that and do that instead. And it was such a revolutionary conversation. And I wish that every neurodivergent knew this. And Sis is a very, very smart human. I'm so grateful that we had that conversation because it was such a big turning point for me. So after that, I ended up signing back up with Kerry Rowett to do regular sessions with her. I started just kind of clearing through the energetic dross that I had built up around myself and my mindset. And then 9 months ago, I also signed up with a new mentor and a mastermind just based on this very deep, intuitive knowing that it was needed. And that intensified the healing journey for me even more. And what I ended up realizing was that I needed to heal my relationship to fame and to success. I'd built up barnacles on my spirit from it. And, I'd experienced a small amount of fame and success, and I'd experienced the duality of it, both the blessings and the challenges of it. I'd experienced the abundance and the fulfillment, and I'd also experienced projections and trolling and conflict, and I didn't know how to hold the duality of that at the time. And so I see so clearly how I retreated away for it. And in 2017, I remember really clearly there was this moment when I looked at my young children and my beautiful husband, and I chose them. I made a decision to put an invisibility cloak of sorts over myself and my business to create kind of this impermeable sanctuary for me and my family. I decided I just wanted to work with clients who knew me and loved me. I knew I could run a small, streamlined business that brought in $1 million a year and that I could run with a part-time assistant. So that's what I did, and it was the perfect thing to do. I got to still like create and share and do my work in the world, and it was easy and it was abundant and it was filled with joy. And I got to homeschool my kids for a few years, and I watched them bloom and grow, and we made the happiest and sweetest and gentlest family life that we could. And I'm never, ever going to regret that decision. It was a 10 out of 10 life choice. And then I felt inside me years later that I wanted to experience expansion again. I wanted to experience business growth and share my work with more people, not just the people who already knew me and loved me, but other people out there who hadn't got to know the Leonie way of living and doing business. And so now I've been doing this work of healing my relationship to fame and to success and to business growth. I've written letters and I've burned them. I've done rituals. I've made healing art. I've worked on deepening my understanding of why people behave the way they did and why I behaved the way that I did. I've forgiven people and I've forgiven myself. And as a Scorpio, learning forgiveness is a revelation, one I didn't think was possible for people of my ilk. And yet there it is. I can forgive. And all of this has been so deeply important and needed. And then I realized as well, like I needed to shift the way that I thought about expansion. Because when I thought about growing myself and my business, I immediately worried about my nervous system and how it could stay regulated during business growth. For many years, I've relied on contraction and strong boundaries to keep my nervous system regulated. I said no to most things. I constrained my work hours and my social activities, and I thought it was really the only option that I had. And then I realized that there was another way for me to consider nervous system regulation, that I could work on expanding my capacity instead. And that instead of doing less to cope, I could instead work on my nervous system's ability to regulate to a new level. And instead of retreating, I could use other tools like breath work to regulate. I also discovered serendipitously as well that I had unresolved primitive reflexes. So one of my friends is an occupational therapist, and one night we went out to dinner and she was telling me all about the latest conference that she'd been to and learned all about primitive reflexes. So for example, like the startle reflex that infants have, that reflex resolves for most people. But for a variety of reasons, it doesn't resolve for everyone, and they can cause a range of neurological and physical issues. And I was completely fascinated learning all about this. And then she showed me the physical test that you can do to see if someone has an unresolved Moro reflex, which is the startle reflex that you see in infants. And I remember as I was doing the test, my arms just began immediately to like flail wildly and uncontrollably. And she was like, "Don't be an idiot." And she was just laughing. And I was like, "I promise you, you're not doing this on purpose. This feels awful." And she just got really wide-eyed and she was like, "Damn, Loads, that's a really significant unresolved reflex that you've got there. And that reflex is actually going to be going off for you constantly during the day without you even being aware. You may not have the full physical arm flail happen, but your stress receptors would be going off in your brain. So if you're at the grocery store, any loud noises or beeps or bright lights could be setting off that startle reflex for you and causing a huge amount of stress in your nervous system. And there are ways that you can resolve this reflex as an adult." And I just remember just feeling dumbfounded and staring at her, because that's exactly how I felt in stores. My brain would feel on fire from being in one. And I attributed it to being an autistic symptom that I'd never be able to heal. And now I was discovering that it was something that could be fixed. That is just so wild. So at the beginning of this year, I made the decision that 2025 was the year that I resolved my primitive reflexes. There's a range of different ways that you can do it, including working with occupational therapists. I ended up doing a bunch of in-person sessions with Dr. Sharon Williams, who is a chiropractor, kinesiologist, a witchy woman with a million different healing modalities. And she works out here in Canberra. And let me tell you, Dr. Sharon and what she's done has just made a huge, huge difference in my life. It is absolutely wild. And I feel like this was a really important key component of helping my nervous system to regulate. So much so that when I just went away for our business mastermind retreat, which I just spoke about in the previous episode, I actually couldn't believe that I didn't experience overstimulation or overwhelm during it. Usually after like a full day of socializing or intense activity, I am like glazed over and non-verbal by the evening. And at the retreat, I was not. Even my friends noticed, like, oh my God, Leonie, you have changed so much. You're managing this so well. I'm so impressed and happy for you, because they've seen me at conferences before and they know how much, I pour all of myself into them, and how much at a certain point the brain just switches off completely. And this time I didn't experience that, and that feels incredible. And then bringing all of this healing and expansion that I've been doing into my business and my work. And I really feel like the level of my work has deepened and become so much more powerful because of it. I feel like I've created some of the best coaching calls of my life. I just ran Big Money, Big Impact, and it was so, so powerful. And I'm now able to like create and launch and hold space at a level that I've never been able to do before. So just this year, I birthed 2025 Dream Quest, and then I led the most amazing circle of women through some really deep soul work in a program called Creative Goddess Embodied. And then last month with Big Money, Big Impact, it was a 21-day coaching container with hundreds of students, incredible results. And after such like an intensely wonderful creative experience and peopling experience like that, I would ordinarily need 1 to 2 months of quiet time to recover. And this time I needed none. I was like chomping at the bit to create the next thing, and I did. So I turned around and created Backstage Pass, and I'm enjoying the absolute bejesus of that, out of that. And then I've got Momentum Mastermind, which is starting very soon as well. And I was just astonished at how much my capacity has widened. I feel so incredibly grateful for the healing and the miracles that I've experienced during this journey. I'm so excited for what's next, and it feels like such a profound blessing. I wanted to share this with you because I know so many of you have learned through me doing my own journey and sharing about that journey. So when I shared about my autism diagnosis, when I shared about my ADHD diagnosis, a lot of you, it was a catalyst point for you to go, oh, that's me. Those symptoms are mine. Like, oh my golly gosh. Oh my golly gosh. And then, even when I became a mother 15 years ago and I was going through postnatal depression and I shared that story up, so many of you were like, oh, I'm actually just realized I'm not coping. I just realized that I'm actually experiencing this and I've been ignoring it. And oh my God, I can't believe that there's an option to heal this. So I wanted to offer this story up to you in the hope that it reminds you that growth and healing and expansion are always possible. And I hope you find it for you and for your loved ones in all the ways that resonate with you. So bless, bless, bless. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I want to put a little PS on this as well, because I don't think I've shared about this maybe I did. Who knows? I can't remember the last podcast episode. Momentum Mastermind is starting very soon. If you go to leoniedawson.com/momentum, it is a small group mastermind to help people take huge action and get huge results in their business over the next 8 weeks. And I cannot wait to do it. So leoniedawson.com/momentum. Otherwise, I'm kissing you, I'm hugging you, I'm loving you. You've got this forever.